Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Pablo, for the introduction. And I'd like to extend my thanks to EMED for inviting FAO to be with you today in this very important conference. I have to apologize that I don't speak Spanish, so my presentation will be in English, and I would not spend time on introducing myself as Pablo has done that already. So today I'll be presenting to you a document, or actually this document is the outcome of a long work with WHO and international experts on what we call the guiding principles of sustainable healthy diets. Before I get to the principles, to the guiding principles, and perhaps in the discussions we can discuss how this relates to the Mediterranean diet, I just want to give you the context for this work. So we were asked by member countries of FAO and WHO to help them understand how healthy diets can be sustainable. Because in the literature, there are definitions for healthy diets. There is a definition given by WHO and other institutions. WHO defines healthy diets in a very special context, in fact, to prevent non-communicable diseases. FAO sees healthy diets in a more, in a larger way, let's say. FAO has come up with a definition for sustainable diets, but it seemed to be very difficult for countries to understand. So we were asked to help countries understand better how healthy diets can be sustainable. Why is it so? It is actually the reason for this was because there are two major challenges of the 21st century. There is the challenge of malnutrition, and also there is the challenge of sustainability of production and consumption. So in my presentation, I will be presenting to you some elements of the situation at the global level of malnutrition and also of sustainability. So I have a problem seeing the slides, so let me just approach here. So now I can see my slides. I will go to the first slide. Okay, so the outline of the presentation, I will start by talking to you about two big challenges facing us: malnutrition and sustainability of food production and consumption. I will then walk you through the guiding principles of sustainable healthy diets, and then I'll tell you what we are doing in FAO and the WHO to a certain extent in relation to sustainable healthy diets. So we have seen from different international reports, very important reports, that malnutrition in all its forms, that is undernutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, and overweight and obesity, are not decreasing or are increasing in a way that we don't appreciate or we don't see conducive to progressing towards achieving the sustainable healthy diets. So the figures in front of you are taken from the State of Food Security and Nutrition of 2019, which shows you that 121 million people in the world suffer from hunger, and about 2 billion experience moderate or severe food insecurity. So they are at the verge of falling into hunger as well. If we look into the details, we see that 2 billion people lack key micronutrient deficiencies like iron and vitamin A. We also see that 155 million children are stunted and 52 million children are wasted. Now, when it comes to overweight and obesity, there are 2 billion adults who are overweight and obese, and in fact, what is also worrying is that we have 41 million children who are overweight. So, and this situation is affecting most countries in the world, and around 88% of the countries are facing really serious problems when it comes to one or two or three of these malnutrition deficiencies together. So we are not on track to achieving the set goals for improving malnutrition in all its forms. Of course, when we talk about malnutrition, we tend to think of undernutrition, but in fact, we are emphasizing that malnutrition in all its forms is a problem of the 21st century, because we have seen that overweight and obesity are increasing and increasing quite fast and dramatically. So in this graph in front of you, you can see the numbers of people that have body mass index. This is how we measure overweight and obesity. Body mass index over 25 is a measure of overweight, and above 30 is a measure of obesity. And the figures in front of you represent the period from 1990 to 2016, and you can see a clear increase in the graphs. So the situation is alarming at the global level. We also know that the non-communicable diseases are increasing, and this graph in front of you shows you the situation of adults with diabetes in 2017 and how it is projected to be in 2045. And we know that, very well that diabetics are more prone to develop cardiovascular diseases, which means that we are facing a global situation which is alarming. Now, all this data that I'm presenting to you they come from before the COVID-19 crisis that hit the world in 2020. So we also know that those who had serious outcomes or fatal outcomes because of COVID-19 were people with cardiovascular diseases, non-communicable diseases, and obese. They did fare less well in dealing with the infections. So we know now that there is a link between the situation of malnutrition or good nutrition and how much we can also fight infectious diseases. So, underneath all this is a very immediate cause for these outcomes in health. We know that outcomes in health have many different causes, but one of the immediate causes and one of the major risk factors to having ill health and to having cardiovascular non-communicable diseases is unhealthy diets. As you can see in this graph that I'm presenting to you, unhealthy diets are a major risk factor in the rates of mortality and morbidity. So what does this tell us? It tells us that we have a major problem in malnutrition, and countries are still not there to meet their set goals of reducing malnutrition. But if we go back to 2014 and to the second International Conference on Nutrition that was organized by FAO and WHO, we see that countries, heads of states and international organizations did acknowledge that the current food systems are the ones responsible for not providing adequate, safe, diversified, and nutrient-rich foods that can contribute to healthy diets. And why is it so? Because these food systems are constrained by the scarcity of resources, by the environmental degradation, and also by the fact that our production and consumption patterns are not sustainable. Food losses, waste, unbalanced distribution of food, inequity in the distribution of resources are all contributing factors to why our food systems are not providing us with healthy options and healthy foods, accessible, affordable, and likable by the people who would consume them. So this is where we started talking about the sustainability, and the sustainability as linked to all also the problems of food systems not delivering on healthy diets, and we saw that from different research, we know that our food production is actually putting a lot of constraints on the natural resources, including land, water, and other resources at the global level. So food production accounts for the use of 48% of land and 70% of freshwater resources, which is a lot. Now, of course, if we look at this graph and which foods are contributing what amount of or what percentage to the use of natural resources, we will see that not all food groups behave the same. So there are food groups that are present more stress on the natural resources, and here I'm talking in particular about livestock. But it's not only about food production; it's the way we eat and the diets and their contribution to climate change, at least as we can see from this graph in front of you here. This piece of research shows us the contribution of different diets to the to climate change, and here we see that vegetarian diets are the less, let's say, offensive in terms of contribution to climate change, and the diet that we are practicing now in Europe and in the West, which is at the highest bar you can see there, is the one that is causing more problems. The Mediterranean diet is not as friendly as the vegetarian diet, let's say, but it's not as offensive as the current diets that we are having in the West. So sustainable consumption and sustainable production are both needed in order to push food systems that are more sustainable on the long term, so that they can make available to the consumer the foods that are at the same time high in nutritious value, but also friendly to the environment. So this is why FAO and WHO came together in July 2019 and organized this consultation on sustainable healthy diets. As I said, this also had, in addition to FAO and WHO experts, it benefited from the inputs of 33 internationally known experts in different areas related to healthy diets and sustainable diets. So the consultation was also the result of 2 years of work, 5 background documents on different areas related to sustainable diets. We had a paper on what healthy diets mean. We had a paper on the contribution of sociocultural aspects to the healthy and sustainable diet. We had a paper on the economic aspects. We had a paper on food safety, and then we had a paper on how territorial diets in their different forms can be a manifestation of healthy and sustainable diet. We dealt with 2 diets in this paper, the Mediterranean diet and the New Nordic diet, as examples of the principles of sustainable healthy diet. So what are these sustainable healthy diet guiding principles telling us? They're telling us that sustainable healthy diets are not one prescribed diet. They are dietary patterns that promote all dimensions of individual health and well-being, including mental health. This is how we see the definition of sustainable healthy diets. They are dietary patterns that have low environmental pressure and impact, but are accessible, affordable, safe, and equitable. Equity is very important, and we have seen that in developed countries, we are having difference in what people can afford to to buy and eat and consume, depending on which economic strata they are in or which social background they come from. So equity becomes a very important question in accessing good health and healthy diets and sustainable diets. But also these diets need to be culturally acceptable. And why are we insisting on this is because one diet does not fit in all countries and in all cultural contexts. So it's very important to talk about how culturally acceptable a diet is. So we are not promoting the Mediterranean diet outside the Mediterranean region. We are promoting the principles of the Mediterranean diet, but we are promoting the new Nordic diet for the Nordic region. So we have to be very clear about that one diet doesn't fit every and each context. So of course, then the aim of the sustainable healthy diets are to achieve optimal growth and development. And so you will see that we start from early on in life in defining what sustainable healthy diets are. These diets should contribute to all forms of malnutrition, not only to preventing non-communicable diseases or to addressing undernutrition, and they should definitely reduce the impact of non-communicable diseases, because these are becoming a major challenge for countries, and of course they need to prevent the loss of biodiversity and to protect planetary health. So this is in general the vision of the sustainable healthy diets. But the principles are 16. So I'm showing you the principles. I'm sorry if the print is small, but I will explain to you what these principles are. So if we look, each color will represent a category of or a dimension of sustainability. So the first 8 will be the principles on health. And here we start, as I said, from the early beginning. So our definition of a healthy diet starts from breastfeeding, and of course we are promoting in the principles the exclusive breastfeeding. We then put a lot of emphasis on variety and balance across food groups. We have seen in many situations that people can be eating from different food groups, but in fact variety within the food group could be minimal, and this is not our definition of a healthy diet. We definitely focus on whole grains, on legumes and nuts, and the abundance of fruits and vegetables, but we do not make of animal sourced foods a devil. So we are talking about moderate to small amounts depending on where you live, what type of food you're having, what your needs are. There are areas in the world where there should be an increase in the availability of animal source food, and there are areas where we need to reduce that. So it's not the same for everybody. But also these diets need to be safe of pathogens and toxins. Food that is not safe is not food. So this is why we need to be very careful about not forgetting food safety from the definition of healthy diets. And as I said, they need to be aligned with the WHO guidelines for reducing non-communicable diseases, but it's not the only definition of healthy diets. We are emphasizing the importance of adequacy and not exceeding needs, knowing that needs are different for different populations and for different individuals. So, and then of course with the problem that we're seeing around the world in represented in the increase of consumption of drinks that are high in sugar, sweetened drinks, we are insisting on clean water as being the fluid of choice in our definition of healthy diets. Then we move on to the principles on environment. We are starting by saying what a sustainable healthy diet is. So we are starting by a definition of healthy diets, and then these diets are sustainable. And this is why we have 5 principles on the environment that refer to the greenhouse gas emissions, to water and land use, to nitrogen and phosphorus application, to chemical pollution, and all this needs to be within set targets. But targets are different and they should be different in different countries. So here is where a lot of work needs also to be done to define these targets, but also they need to be aligned with the global targets. These diets also need to preserve biodiversity. We know that there is a big difference between the varieties of the same food in terms of how much micronutrients they contribute. Just to say the least, we do also know that there's a big difference in how the different varieties mitigate the stress of the environmental stresses and thrive. So, but we shouldn't also forget that in our new ways of production, we have seen the introduction of antibiotics and hormones to the food production chain, and these we know that they have very negative implications for health, and this becomes one of the principles that we need to factor in our principles on the environment. Use of plastics, plastic in packaging, and food losses and waste are also dimensions that we didn't used to think about a lot previously when we used to think about the stress we are putting through our production and consumption patterns on the environment. So these are the new things that we are all putting in the new principles. Then we have three principles on the sociocultural aspects, and we emphasize that the diet or the dietary patterns, they need to build on and respect local cultures. They should not be parachuted from top down. They should come from the local context. We need to respect the local knowledge and the consumption patterns, but have them go in the direction of healthiness and sustainability. They should be accessible and desirable, and above all, avoid adverse gender-related impacts. Why are we putting a lot of emphasis on this? It's because we see many recommendations, dietary recommendations in the literature that makes the processing a devil in a way, and they call for starting from scratch and everything, but who is doing the cooking? Most of the cultures, it's women, but women are also working outside the house, and this puts a lot of stress on women. So we want to have the right balance between the nutritional aspects, the convenience, the environmental aspects, and also the ability of women to practice their roles not only as care providers in the family, but as complete citizens in the society. So this is why this is very important to us in these principles. Now, these are too many principles. We know that. We know that this is not an easy scenario to live with. So we have in our publication pointed to many conditions that need to be available at country level and sometimes at the global level to make the implementation of these guiding principles possible. But above all, we know that there would be trade-offs between the different dimensions. All depends on the local context and the what is more priority to a country to put focus on. So we do know that the enabling environment needs to be there for us to be able to implement this vision on sustainable healthy diets. There should be policy coherence. We see in many situations that the social protection policies are not aligned with policies on promoting healthy and sustainable diets. They need to talk to each other, or trade policies are not aligned with the major challenges in nutrition and in environmental sustainability, for example. So the alignment of and the coherence of policies are very important elements to put in place. We need to understand the local food systems. What works in one system cannot be exported to another one. So there's a lot of work of research to put in place to understand what we're talking about, what are the bottlenecks, why our food systems, our particular food systems cannot deliver on healthy diets. We need these representative know where we are going. So it allows us also to put in place monitoring and evaluation systems that can help us see where we're going. So within this local context, we need to understand a lot of things. We need to understand which foods are available and accessible. Are they accessible for the people who need them more? Or are we addressing our dietary recommendations to the people who are having less problems when it comes to health and to safeguarding the natural and resources and be affordable and acceptable socially and culturally. The diets need to be, these sustainable healthy diets need to be affordable. They need to be desirable. We cannot talk about nutrients. We cannot talk about eating this and that as if it's a prescription. It's not. Food is much more than that. So how do we balance the trade-offs? There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of understanding to be done. One way of putting all these things together has been through developing national food-based dietary guidelines that focus on the urgent nutrition problems, but are also having a lens of sustainability, whether it's environmental, social, or cultural. And of course, for all this to happen, we need to work with the consumer. We need to develop their capacities, their skills, and competences to have their behaviors change. So it's not one thing or another. So how do we see the way forward? We see the way forward by first, as FAO and WHO, is to make these guiding principles workable. To make them workable, we need to populate them with the proper indicators. So we have 16 principles. We are now working on literature review to see what has been used in the literature as indicators so that we can have tangible, measurable indicators that we can assess. For some of these principles, we are still struggling because the indicators are more of a qualitative nature. So we need to understand better how these are can be put in one place with the quantitative indicators. And why? Why do we want to do that? Is because we are thinking about developing a tool that can help visualize the options and the trade-offs that countries have to make in light of their context. So this is where we are going. Now, I will stop here. I will show you the publications we have in case you are interested in following up on some of our work, so that you can check our references. And for some reason this is not working. To go to the second slide. Okay, here we are. Okay, so here you can see some of our recent resources that contribute to the understanding of food systems and diets. So I encourage you all to check our website, which you will see here on this slide, and you can see also the PDF document on FAO WHO Sustainable Healthy Diets Guiding Principles, which I advise you to download. There is a Spanish version of the publication. Now, I have not talked about the Mediterranean diet within this new vision of sustainable healthy diets. But if you want, we can discuss this in the questions, but what I would, questions and answers, but what I want to say is that, of course, the Mediterranean diet is supported by years and years of research to show its health benefits. There is less research on its sustainability aspects. There are some also showing beneficial impacts on some natural resources. More is needed in that line, but also, and this is where we come to a very important issue, we are emphasizing the cultural context. So the Mediterranean diet principles and not the Mediterranean diet is what we are trying to promote as sustainable, as a model of sustainable healthy diets. With this, I thank you, and I think my time is up. And please feel free to ask questions. Thank you very much.